Hello and welcome to Between the 20s, a sports podcast brought to you by three U Chicago alumni. Yes, we are all alumni now. 2020 brought a lot of things, but it brought the three of us diplomas from the great university in the Midwest. Since then, we we all got jobs and we're working. So we are very busy. And I'm speaking here to two of the busiest men I know. Bryce, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Mike. But nothing much going on right now, obviously, with the COVID pandemic going on. But like you said, graduated last year, started working last year. So good things to come in 2021, I am sure. But right now, as of this moment, more than happy and really, really happy to be back with you guys talking sports.
And Amir, what's up with you? Still in Boston, of course.
Still in Boston. I'm doing good. Working man, just like the two of you. And I'm even better now that we're on this pod.
Yes.
We're starting it back up. Let's get it.
All good on the pod, but for those of you that were fans of Amir in school, don't worry. He's most likely headed back there next year. He's going on to hopefully become a doctor. And with that, thank you to all the frontline workers out there amid the COVID crisis. Definitely very strong individuals who kind of brought the country and the world, I'd say, through this pandemic. But we have some sports to talk about today. Yes, we do. There's a lot. First, we have NHL season coming up. That's always headline news. Hockey, people love it. Might talk about it. Bryce might have a hot take about it, or ice cold take, I should say. NBA is getting into full swing, and right now we have the start of the NFL playoffs. Right here. With that, we, in this video, are going to be breaking down our picks for the AFC champion, the NFC champion, and eventually our pick for the Super Bowl champion. With that, we're going to go around first and name our AFC champion. Obviously, 7 teams alive in the AFC with this new playoff format. Very exciting. The Chiefs have a bye in the wild card round, so they automatically move on to the divisional round. And this weekend, we start with our wild card matchups. Bryce, who do you see coming out of the AFC?
In the AFC, I actually have the number 2 seed Buffalo Bills going to win the AFC Championship this year. Bit of a hot take, but they're the number 2 seed for a reason. They looked exceptional this year, particularly Josh Allen with his new number 1 weapon, Stephon Diggs, who, for the fantasy fans out there, lit it up this season. I don't have to tell you guys that, but if there's any team that matches up really well against Kansas City, it's probably Buffalo. They can go toe-to-toe in a shootout. The defense is good enough to at least stop the Chiefs train a little bit more than some other teams. That being said, this weekend is going to be a tough test for them. Indianapolis does match up pretty well against Buffalo, but if they can get through, I do see the Bills going all the way to the Super Bowl, led by third-year quarterback Josh Allen.
Wow. All right. Interesting take from Bryce, who has the number 2 seed, advancing to the Super Bowl from the AFC. Amir, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going pretty chalk. I gotta disagree with you, Bryce. I'm rolling with the Chiefs, defending Super Bowl champions, reigning Super Bowl MVP, Patrick Mahomes at the helm. This team's just good, man. They lost 14-2 this year. They had just an amazing year again. Patrick Mahomes another amazing year, and before I count them out, I gotta see him lose. They have been a bit shaky at times this year, so I understand the trepidation and I understand, I guess, the pick with the Bills. But if you do remember earlier this season, the Chiefs did beat the Bills, and I think they're going to do it again. I got the Chiefs going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, all right. So now my AFC pick, honestly, it's a tough pick. Both of those teams are fantastic. On one hand, I think that the Chiefs are not the team that they were last year that won the Super Bowl. That doesn't mean they don't have the talent to win the Super Bowl, but you look at some games that just make you question whether they have the ability to make, the full-blown playoff run here and kind of granted they have one less week, so that's good for their odds to make it. But you look at games like that game against the Miami Dolphins. Granted they won, but that first half, I think Patrick Mahomes threw 3 interceptions. That's a little bit scary to me because the Dolphins defense isn't fantastic. And it shows, I think, that there is potentially a scheme out there to stop Patrick Mahomes. moving on to the Bills. I think the Bills are a team that's exciting and young, and they're that kind of pick that you're a lot of people are rooting for. You obviously have the Bills Mafia, as it's called up there in Northwest New York, very far from the New York teams, the Jets and Giants. So I think those two teams, I think those are probably the best pick. And with that, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. Despite just trashing them for about a minute and a half, I do think that they have obvious playoff experience, which is going to be huge. They also have to they get a bye week here, plus the week they just had where they rested a lot of players against the Chargers. To be perfectly honest, I heard that they were 14-2, wondered what the second game they had lost, and then saw that they basically benched half of their players against the Chargers. So they're coming in well rested to that divisional matchup game. And then you look at it, it's just 3 games they have to win back to back to back. Buffalo has to win that wild card as well. And I think they're just generally less experienced. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs there. But I do have to say, I didn't want to leave them out. If I had to put in a third pick there of the teams I consider, I think that Ravens team is dangerous. I do think, I wouldn't say that they're obviously not my pick to get to the Super Bowl, but I do think that from the Chargers and Bills, they're kind of that team that, they didn't perform well in the playoffs last year, so I think they kind of do want to this year, and they seem to be getting into a rhythm recently, which is very scary. So that's kind of my take on the AFC. We've heard all of our takes. We have 2 Chiefs picks, 1 Bills pick. Bryce, looks like you're wrong again. Sorry about that. But that's one of 2 leagues. We have to get to the second now, the NFC. We all know about the woes in the NFC East. Hopefully the playoffs won't bring us moments as ugly as what happened with the Philadelphia Eagles on the last night of the season. At least it was very ugly for Bryce and myself as Giants fans. Bryce, who do you have coming out of the NFC? Is it the football team?
It is not the football team. I think the football team is going to lose in the first round, or wild card weekend, I should say, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers led by Tom Brady.
Is the Tom Brady guy any good?
I don't know. I haven't heard of him before.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty good.
I heard he was like a 6th round pick, so I don't know.
He was. I heard that. I heard he ran a terrible 40-yard dash.
Yeah. 5+ seconds. I mean, I could do that in my sleep. Easy.
But unfortunately, as we talk about Tampa, that is not my pick. I'm going to preface this a little bit interestingly for me and for you guys and for the viewers. New Orleans, I think, is the most complete team in the NFL. They, top to bottom, I think they are the most complete team, coaching, leadership to actual on-field play. But my pick to win the NFC is Green Bay. I think the Packers are going to come out and win this conference fairly easily, I actually will say. There's a lot of holes on just about every team in the NFC. The Rams, you never know which team you're going to get. Same thing with the Seahawks. The Bears, are the Bears. And then obviously the Washington football team and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Green Bay is going to be led by, most likely, in my opinion, MVP Aaron Rodgers. He's playing like a man possessed this season. I think as much as people were begrudging the Jordan Love pick back at the draft, that might be the greatest thing for the Packers because it has kicked Aaron Rodgers into another gear. He has been out of his mind. Devontae Adams, Mike, you had him in our fantasy league. The guy forgot how to not score. That's all he does. And we easily forget that this defense is respectable to above average at times. They have guys like Jair Alexander, Darnell Savage, really good secondary. If they can get a pass rush working a little more with the Smith brothers, they could be really, really dangerous. And I think the Green Bay Packers are going to run the table and win the NFC.
All right, Amir, do you agree with Bryce's take?
He's a bad man. But I don't agree with Bryce. I do not think the Packers will make the Super Bowl. I have the Seattle Seahawks taking it from them in the AFC Championship game. I just think Seattle is good. They've had some struggles. They started the season so well. They seemed like the best team in the league. They were letting Russ cook, and he was just killing it in the kitchen. And then they kind of slowed down a little bit middle of the season. Their defense didn't look great, especially their pass defense through the air. But I think as of late, these last 4 or 5 weeks, they've picked it up. The defense has gotten hot. You still got Russell Wilson, who's top 5, maybe top 3 quarterback in the NFL. And they have an underrated rushing attack. Rashad Penny's back. They obviously got Chris Carson. And they got those 2 wide receivers on the outside, Tyler Lockett, and of course DK Metcalf, the absolute beast. I like
My
Seattle.
body double, yes.
Yep. I think it's Seattle's turn this year. I got them going to the Super Bowl.
Interesting. I'm gonna go with Bryce. I agree. I think the Packers are going to be coming out of the NFC for all the reasons that Bryce stated, I think. But I have, like I had the Ravens in the AFC, I have a sort of surprise team that I think is probably seated a little bit lower than how they will perform in the playoffs, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Actually, because of reasons other than Tom Brady. I mean, you have such an electric offense where you have Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski and Antonio Brown, and the list continues. But also you have that defense that has the ability to really perform. I mean, you saw that game against the Packers earlier in the year where you turned away from your TV and all of a sudden the Packers were up. I mean, excuse me, the Bucs were up after a few interceptions of the bad man, which I thought was pretty crazy. But then on the other side, you had a game like the Bucs against the Saints on Sunday night, which none of us want to relive. That might actually be worse than the Eagles Washington football team game from Sunday. So I agree with the Packers. And the Saints team, I have to say, Bryce made a very good case for them right now, actually, before he went and picked the Packers. I just don't feel that they're in a rhythm. Of course, I felt like they were in a rhythm last year before they got knocked out of the playoffs, prematurely, some would argue. But I just feel that with Drew Brees out, they don't have that. They didn't build that same momentum where you had the Taysom Hill stint helping fantasy owners like Amir, very frustrating for the rest of us. But Michael Thomas he was injured for the first part of the season. I don't think he's lived up to kind of his usual self. Alvin Kamara has been good. He had that 6 touchdown game that everybody killed some fantasy teams. But I'm so confused because that defense is also good. How do you guys feel about the Saints? Where do you see them getting knocked out?
So that's interesting because I think where the Saints get knocked out is going to entirely depend on what happens in the Seahawks-Ram game. Entirely depend on what happens in the Seahawks-Ram game. Seahawks win, and then let's assume Tampa wins, probably in all cases. New Orleans would then end up playing Seattle, and Amir, I know that you're a pick, but I still see New Orleans winning that game. If the Rams win, then New Orleans gets Tampa Bay. And we know how that went this season. I see New Orleans then losing to Green Bay in the NFC Championship game. So it is going to entirely depend on what happens this wildcard weekend, particularly in that NFC West rematch.
Mm-hmm. Amir, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to disagree. I said I like Seattle coming out, and if they do beat the Rams, then it looks like it'll be Seattle, New Orleans in the divisional round, which I think Seattle will win. It's definitely a great game. That'll be a tough fought game. But yeah, I actually want to bring it to the other side. I know you guys picked the Packers, but I think if the Tampa Bay Bucs get through, I would be scared as a Packers fan to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That team is lights out. And what they did to them earlier this season, it felt a little bit like what San Francisco was able to do to them last year. Last year, San Francisco blew out Green Bay twice. Maybe we're in for another season like that, which would be tough for Wisconsinites and cheeseheads all around. So yeah, who knows? But yeah, going back to your question about the Saints, I don't know. They're such a good team, and they look great. But I don't know. They did lose to the Packers earlier this season, albeit it was early on. But I think having Michael Thomas kind of injured, not at 100%, I think that's a huge loss. He's one of the best receivers in the game, and so losing him is going to make it tough, especially on an aging quarterback like Drew Brees.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Saints for me is I could honestly see them being the NFC champion, but I could also very legitimately, and much to our podcast guest Ben's, he loves the Bears, so much to his delight, I could see a game where the Bears, they play like a, very low scoring game. The Bears defense shuts the Saints down and gets some fluke score on offense or scores defensively, and all of a sudden the Bears are moving on to the divisional round. Like that wouldn't necessarily shock me. But on the other hand, I feel like in a Seahawks Saints matchup, I would favor the Saints. So I'm left very confused here, trying to figure out where the Saints are going to go. But I feel like in the end, the Packers are going to pull through here. But
right.
Yes,
I was going to say, I think you said it right though, that it's going to be if this thing can gel, right? If they can find some of that momentum. So I think your point there is definitely very accurate when it comes to can they beat the Bears, and then subsequently can they beat whoever they would end up facing in the divisional round.
because I think, honestly, my opinion would be swayed so much if this weekend they go in and just like blow the Bears right out of the water. Like that would show that they are able to beat a good defense. And obviously, the Bears had their own offensive woes, but just being able to put up that many points on the Bears would impress me. But those are our picks for the AFC and the NFC. Now we do have to crown a Super Bowl champion. Bryce, I'll start with you. Who do you see winning this year's Super Bowl?
I'm going to go with winning their second with Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers. And Mike, this is going to go back to one of the things that you said as a knock on the Bills, and that's inexperience. It's just a fact that they are limited in their playoff experience, in most cases, none, like their quarterback, Josh Allen. That even dates back to college, where Josh Allen played at Wyoming, doesn't have that big game experience. He's gaining it now. He's a phenomenal quarterback. But you're going up against Aaron Rodgers in the hunt for his third MVP, which would put him in the upper echelon of guys, in the hunt for his second Super Bowl, which we know has been eluding him for the past decade or so. I just think, as I said before, he's really on a mission. It's coming down to him. Matt LaFleur has game planned exceptionally well. And I think that Aaron Rodgers in particular is just going to outsmart the Bills in that game. And the Green Bay Packers will be crowned your 2020-2021 Super Bowl champion.
All right. We have an NFC champion up there. Amr, do you have an NFC champion as well?
I do have an NFC champion.
Wow.
I got Seattle taking it over the Chiefs. I think if there's any team that can keep up with the Chiefs offense, I think you got to look at the Seahawks. They got all the weapons on the outside. They got Chris Carson. This offense can keep up, and I think they can win in a shootout against the Chiefs. I think with this defense, like I said, rounding into form, they picked up Carlos Dunlap. Jamal Adams is now healthy. I think Jamal Adams can cause some trouble for Patrick Mahomes in a potential Super Bowl matchup. And like I said, I think Russ wants one. I think Russ really wants one. He got one earlier in his career, and a lot of people could say he was kind of riding on the coattails of the Legion of Boom. But if he gets this one, that was all him. It was all Russell Wilson. So I like Seattle this year, and the Chiefs. Obviously, they're great. They have shown some weaknesses. Almost taking it to overtime against Atlanta, only for a missed field goal. And they lost earlier to the Raiders, who didn't make the playoffs. So not quite sure. But like I said, I'm rolling with the Seahawks.
The two of you both picked a quarterback to repeat. I'm picking quarterback to repeat as well, but that quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, who I think will lead the Chiefs to a Super Bowl this year. I really don't see the Super Bowl being a game that I will be as interested in as some of the late NFC, AFC games. I feel that the Chiefs have the potential, or really the team in the AFC has the potential to really beat down on the team that emerges from the NFC. I don't have a lot of faith in these NFC pretenders. I think we all saw what happened. Like I said, if my surprise team, the Bucs, make it to the Super Bowl, they could very well have a game like that against the Saints. We discussed how the Saints don't really have that much cohesion at this point in the season. And we also discussed how the Packers, haven't discussed, but I think we seriously need to reevaluate kind of their defense. I agree that they do have some pieces that Bryce pointed out, but they definitely aren't one of the strongest defenses we have in this playoffs. And I just think that it's very hard to stop Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs defense, people forget because that offense is so strong, is very good. You have Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. You have the front led by Jones' first name, Chris Jones. Very strong defense on the Chiefs side, or at least enough to enable their offense to win, I think, any game. And I think that's what's going to happen in this year's Super Bowl. So you have 3 different takes, 3 different Super Bowl champions, and I think 3 different Super Bowls.
Super Bowl matchups,
Super Bowl matchups. So a lot of excitement, a lot of different opinions coming out of this Between the 20s discussion.
It's hard to agree when the Patriots aren't in the playoffs because we know everyone picks the Patriots when they're in.
And they got burned that Eagles season 2 or 3 years ago, as we all remember. And then the Falcons season, the Falcons thought they were going to take that Super Bowl, and Patriots just wiped it from. They thought they had it, but they just out of their grasp. Any of you have any playoff takes you'd like to throw in there before things get started?
I have one, and I think just one team that could surprise and run the table. If they just start to hit their stride, watch out for the Rams. They could really do something. Mike, you said it, the NFC is a bunch of pretenders. Even though I did pick the Green Bay Packers to win the whole thing, the Rams defense is unbelievable when they're on. I mean, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, they can really run the table if given the opportunity. It's just going to be about if the offense can keep it going or really just do anything in general with Jared Goff and his fractured thumb. That's kind of my hot take. If there's anything that can kind of upset the ecosystem going on right now, it could be the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, if I got a dark horse pick, I'm thinking the Titans.
Not a bad.
They got Derrick Henry, just rushed for 2,000 yards. No big deal. He's an absolute beast. He just gets better as the year goes on, as games get late, as defenses get tired. This guy just keeps pounding, keeps destroying linebackers, defensive backs, defensive tackles. Doesn't matter who you are. You're probably going to catch a stiff arm from King Henry. He's a beast. And Ryan Tannehill's been playing awesome. He and A.J. Brown have that great connection. Only problem with the Titans is their defense is very stinky this year, which is honestly one of the reasons I haven't really considered them as being a true contender. But I think that if their offense can really push hard and if Derrick Henry can just take over a game, I think they got a chance in the AFC.
Yeah, the Titans, when I would see them on this NFL schedule early in the year, I go, Titans, good defense and Derrick Henry. That proved not to be true for really the large majority of the year. They had Derrick Henry, and that certainly paid dividends, but the defense definitely struggled this year, which is part of the reason that I'm very reluctant to pick the Titans really to go anywhere during these playoffs. But with that, we have our Super Bowl matchups, our Super Bowl champions, and a new episode of Between the 20s. Thank you for watching, and we will be with you shortly to discuss our fantasy takes and looking back on this year's NFL fantasy season. With that, see you next time.